Wester Ross, Strathpeffer and Lochalsh area committee meeting. Just before we start, I just want to say a few words. We're all reeling a little bit at the devastating news that we have lost our assistant ward manager, Julie Wyman, who died very suddenly, very unexpectedly and far too young a few days ago. So we just want to offer our deepest condolences to her family, her daughter, also to her work colleagues who I know are absolutely stunned. And just to say, Julie was phenomenal support, and not just to all of us as members. And
she was.
We were 3 new members, we were 3 newbies, and Julie helped us find the ropes and move forward. And I know that her work was deeply valued by all the communities that I worked with. So I would just like that noted from us. We're all a bit heavy-hearted this morning. I don't think we've got any apologies for absence.
No apologies today, Chair, no.
No. And do we have any declarations of interest?
I have not received declarations of interest, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Alala. So if it's okay with folk, I would like to make a change in the agenda and take item 8 next, because Margaret Ross, who is presenting this, has to go off to another meeting, I understand. So if you're happy with that, I'll hand over to Margaret.
Lovely, thank you. Yes, I also have the Caithness Area Committee today. So that's the reason for asking for your time early this morning. It's good to meet you all. We haven't met before. I'm currently PHO with responsibility for Skye, Lochalsh and Wester Ross, and I have to say that it's proving to be very enjoyable. Before you today, you are invited to agree a level of rent increase to apply to Wester Ross, Strathpeffer and Lochalsh garages and garage sites. It's not a lengthy paper. You'll be aware that local priorities for garages held on the HRA are undertaken at a local level. Also of note, Area Committee on the 20th of February 2023, so last year, you agreed to apply a 7% increase. We have some slightly different figures for you for some contemplation this time round. Number 5 gives you all the figures you'll need, lets you see the number of units we have, the occupancy and the revenue that we take from those units. The average rent for a garage is £10.77 and a site is £165 per week, which will give you some sort of baseline. The options that are before you this morning are increases of 6.5%, 7.3 or 7.95. That's the figures that we've illustrated for you to help you come to a decision. The tenant consultation and the general rent increase for houses, I believe the recommendation is going to the committee at the end of the month for 7.95. So you can have a wee look at those figures. I'm happy to answer any questions. The only other thing that might be of interest to you is the Sutherland Committee voted for a 10% increase and Nairn, I believe, 20%. So it is in your gift to decide what you want to do this morning. Thank you.
Okay, members, any comments? I mean, I've had a look, the paper's just crashed from my screen, but I believe a 7.5 increase was only 3 pence more a week for non-council tenants, if that's correct, bringing it up to £1, which is quite reasonable. Any comments from other members? No, and there's no hands up that I'm missing, Willie?
No hands up.
No. So I would be minded to recommend the 7.95 increase. Now, if we're agreed on that.
Members are all nodding their heads.
Oh, so I think we're agreed on the 7.95 increase based on what you presented in the paper, Margaret.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much for your decision.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye.
Okay, thank you. So we'll now move on to the next item, which is the Police Scotland Local Committee Performance Report. And I think we have Inspector Richard Ross. Yeah, got Richard Ross. I'll hand over to you, Richard. Thanks.
Yeah, morning, Chair, and morning, councillors. My understanding is you all have had sight of the report prior to this, so my intention would be to run through the report, highlight the relevant points, and then take any questions at the end if that's acceptable to you. Yeah. Okay, so this is the area report for the period of the 1st of April 2023 until the 30th of November 2023. As you'll be aware, previously reports were done at the area committee level, but due to restructuring of our resources to maximise frontline policing, we've reduced the number of reports we are providing, and they are now reporting at area command level. But at this meeting, I will be able to give you local context if required. So, as I say, the reasons are is in relation to our resource levels at the moment. So you'll see the report's got a number of statistics in it. A key part of what we do is to interpret these statistics, to identify crime trends and ensuring we have our resources in the correct places. In terms of the statistics, you'll be aware of that COVID has had an effect on that, particularly around the 5-year average, and it'll take a number of years for that to settle back down. As an oversight, obviously we've come out of the COVID challenges, but we are seeing challenges caused by the cost of living challenges that are being faced by our communities, and we are currently working with partners to protect vulnerable people within the community. As you'll see from the report as I go through it, we've maintained our presence on Highland roads, enforcing road traffic legislation, improving road safety, and investigating road traffic collisions. In terms of violence, we've seen a slight increase in serious assaults, although we are below the 5-year average. Tragically, within the area, we have had 2 murders within the last year, although I will give context that neither of them occurred within your specific local area. They were in differing areas of North Highland. I'll talk a bit about frauds, which continues to cause us concern in relation to the number. I'll also talk about missing people inquiries, where we've seen a significant drop. Hate crime remains low, with a slight decrease on last year. In terms of tackling serious and organised crime, I'll come on to the statistics about that, but again, I'll demonstrate the proactivity of police officers. And finally, I'd like to talk about the implementation of technology within Police Scotland. As you'll be aware, we're trying to improve the technology we have, which enables officers to be out and about more, carry out their work via mobile devices. Recent budget announcements are impacting on Police Scotland's ability to deliver on that. It may take slightly longer than anticipated, but that's a common theme with budget cuts impacting negatively across our policing footprint across the board. Moving on the report, cover local policing priorities. So these remain as road safety and road crime, antisocial behaviour, violence and disorder, acquisitive crime, protecting vulnerable people, serious and organised crime, and terrorism and public order. What you see is for each, as you go through the report, each policing priority then has the intention and the objective detailed. I don't intend to cover them as they're there to read. I'll go over some of the statistics and detail some of the proactive work we're carrying out. So in terms of road safety and road crime, in summary, the number of offences detected are up in both last year and the 5-year average on all recording criteria for road safety and road crime. And that demonstrates the proactivity of police officers. That is offences detected by officers out on patrol. So we've significantly increased in both measures. In terms of preventive work, our way of documenting and recording what we do is Operation Cedar, which is to challenge, educate, detect and reduce. So that's basically run by our road policing unit, but the work is carried out by road policing officers plus local response officers. And as you see from the figures that are in the report, demonstrating that there is a high level of proactivity ongoing in the area. Moving on to antisocial behaviour, disorder and violence. As I said, in terms of statistics, there has been 2 murders within the command area, but not within your specific area. Serious assaults are up on last year, but down on the 5-year average. Possession of drugs is up on last year, but down on the 5-year average. And common assaults are also up on last year's figure, but down on the 5-year. In terms of assaults on emergency service workers, they're down against both measures, which is pleasing to see. In terms of preventative work, we continue to have a harm prevention officer role, which was introduced in the division in 2020. This is a police constable who's based in police headquarters, and he works with both our internal and external partners to reduce the risk posed by alcohol or drugs and the criminality associated with that. In particular, at the moment, is targeting Cuckooing and county lines activity, which is prevalent throughout the area and is a focus of our current ongoing work. So in terms of that, our strategy is to divert, deter, disrupt and detect in line with the Scottish Government strategy. So that post, although based in headquarters, does work across the whole of the Highlands area. It's a post funded by NHS Highland and the Highlands Alcohol and Drug Partnership. And so there's some good partnership working coming out of that. In terms of acquisitive crime, and moving on, there's house breakings are up against both last year and the 5-year, as is motor vehicle crime. I'll mention briefly shoplifting. So you'll see there's been a significant rise in shoplifting, particularly against both figures, actually last year and the 5-year average. This is a national trend where we're seeing a rise in shoplifting. Actually, there has been a significant rise, but at the moment, detection rate is sitting at 68%. We do have some ongoing work in relation to reducing the number of shopliftings and improving detections. Moving on to frauds, we're actually down on last year's figures, although up on the 5-year average. Frauds continues to be a problem across all areas and a national problem. One of the things that COVID did give us was a change in the way criminality was taking place, and a lot of it moved on to online and telephone type frauds. We've seen that continue. We invest a lot of time and resources to putting out preventative measures in relation to frauds, and we've also starting to see the dividends of that with a reduction on last year's figures. So in terms of that, we do a lot of work. We also, where a member of the public has been the victim of a fraud, we will contact them and provide further advice, because evidence does show that somebody who has been a victim is vulnerable to repeat target and repeat victimisation. So we try and prevent that by giving advice to them. The document then covers a number of areas we're working on. The banking protocol, which continues to be successful throughout the area, working with financial institutes to identify live-time crimes in action that are taking place in relation to frauds, where members of the public attend financial institutes looking to carry out transactions where they are probably being scammed. So that works well. We do get notifications and prevent crimes being completed and the members of the public suffering any loss. The document also covers Rural Watch, which again, if you're not members of, I would encourage you to sign up for. Good way of getting information regarding incidents within the area. Moving on to protecting vulnerable people, you'll see from statistics, domestic crime has risen against both measures, as has sexual crime. Hate crime is down on last year, but up on the 5-year average, with the level of hate crime remaining low across the area. In terms of missing people, this is the one statistic that is actually at divisional level. We can't break it down to command area. So we're currently sitting at 129, which is down on significantly last year, a reduction over 50% in missing people reports, which is pleasing to see. One, for the people who are the people going missing, but also in terms of resources for policing, because missing person inquiries are very resource intensive. In terms of missing people, we have, in terms of proactive work, we have allocated an officer to work with each looked after children's care home, working with the staff and also the residents to reduce incidents. That's all starting to show a dividend, I say, with a significant reduction in missing person inquiries across the area. Moving on to serious and organised crime, we report on two measures there: the production, manufacture and cultivation of drugs. And you'll see the figures for that are up against both last year and the 5-year average, and the supply of drugs, including possession with intent, which is up against both measures. So in terms of that, that is proactive work by police officers taking enforcement action to detect drug offences. The document then details county lines activity. That is a key focus for us at the moment. County lines activity, where vulnerable people are targeted in terms of cuckooing and drug dealing activity. So that is a focus for us at the moment. The report then has a section on counter-terrorism. We don't provide any statistics in relation to that, but we do report on the preventative work that's taking place. I don't intend to read out the section from our local counter-terrorism officer. It's there to read. The document then goes on to detail crime statistics, which are there, and I'm able to give context on any of them should that be required. Chair, that's my report, and open to any questions.
Thank you. I think we've got Biz and then Chris. So Biz,
This
Councillor
ward
Campbell.
this ward is west of Ross, Strathpeffer and Lochalsh. And we did have a murder in Lochalsh last year, which is in our ward.
All right.
In Kyle.
Kyle, you're correct. Sorry, yes. So this is maybe the issue with the report, the way the new report is. I suspect that's not been included in the figures. So you're correct, Councillor. Sorry about that. There was one in Kyle. So the figures would actually be 3 rather than 2.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Burt.
Hello, yes, thank you for the report. I see that speeding offences are going up a bit. The reason I raise this is that several of the community councils that I relate to have been complaining about an enormous amount of and increasing excessive speeding. I mean, shooting through small villages. It's obviously, if you like, the complaints have got exacerbated by the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, which I must say I support wholeheartedly. But there are several places where they complain that there are never ever any speed checks. And I wondered if you were developing a policy at all to increase the number of speed checks in particularly some of the Wester Ross communities on the west side of the area where most of the complaints originate. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, so in terms of speeding, we have patrol plans in place. Particularly in our road policing unit, they have patrol plans which cover all areas within the division. Also, local officers respond to complaints as well and carry out speed checks in areas. In terms of communities that have specifically highlighted concerns, what I can say is, in terms of my area, everyone that has been highlighted to me has had speed checks then carried out in it, and I'm unaware of any that have highlighted concerns to us and not had a response. But I would ask that if you're aware of any, please forward me the details and I will look at patrol plans for the areas.
There is one particular lady in Pooloo who emails me rather a lot, and she claims that there have been no speed checks in Pooloo for at least the last year. Well, she may be quite incorrect for all I know, but that's her claim.
I'm aware there has been speed checks carried out in the Pooloo area. But we will continue that, and I'll highlight that to road policing unit and local officers to try and carry out checks when they can within that area to provide reassurance.
Anyway, you are carrying out routine speed checks in all the areas of population.
Yeah, we've got, as we have patrol plans, we try and cover as many communities as we can and as many areas. And I think the report itself reflects that with the increased number of speed detections being carried out.
I have sympathy with some people having difficulty with the new 20 mile an hour speed limit, though I support it. I live in Strathpeffer. Every time I come into the village, I see the sign and I obey it precisely by putting my cruise control onto 20 mph. But I'm very bad at remembering it when I get into my car to drive out of Strathpeffer. Oh gosh, yes, of course. So I sympathise.
So in terms of the 20 mile an hour speed limits, they're relatively recently introduced, and I don't think that has affected the figures this year. I think that is just a result of the work that's been going on. We'll see what impact the 20 mile an hour speed limit has. And in terms of that, we look, if we're doing enforcement in terms of 20 mile an hour speed limits, it's centred around schools predominantly.
Thank you anyway.
Thank you. Any more questions from members? So just a couple of comments from me. First of all, thank you for all your work. Some of the figures are the one about the missing people. That is just such an encouraging statistic. It'd be interesting to know what's affected that, but it's really good to see. Regards to 20 mile an hour, I'm just trying to get the message out to folk that we want their feedback on it. If folk are complaining or not happy, Highland Council has a feedback mechanism, and we want to know what people think. So that's quite important. So I would just invite members to note, if there's no more questions, just note the report, note the progress that's been made against the objectives in the Highland Policing Plan, and also the slight change in format, which I think was necessitated by a reduction in sort of back of office capacity to prepare reports. So are we happy to note that, members?
Noted, and thank you, Inspector Ross.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thanks. So next on the agenda we have, it's Alan McLean we have. Is that correct, from the fire, for the fire report?
Yes, that's correct, Chair. I'm new to this committee, so just a quick introduction.
Right.
Alan McLean. I've moved up here from the Central Belt, so I've now been up here for just under a year. So good morning, Chair and Councillors, and many thanks for allowing me the opportunity to present the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service Committee report for Q3 of 2023. In relation to performance indicators, I would like to report the following. Accidental dwelling fires are comparable from the previous Q3, 1 incident and 3 in the year to date. This is significantly below the local and national average. This incident required no firefighter intervention and resulted in minimal damage, and there have been no fire casualties during this quarter. This has been the case now for a significant period of time. The continued prevention, intervention and protection work carried out by SFRS and its partners supports our communities and those most vulnerable in keeping them safe in their own homes. In relation to deliberate fires, we had one deliberate fire for Q3, which was refuse. This is lower for the committee area in comparison to the wider Highland statistics and significantly lower than the national average for deliberate fires. In the year to date, we have attended 6 incidents. Road traffic collisions. There have been 3 road traffic collisions in Q3 attended by Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, which is lower than expected for the quarter, with only 3 casualties and no fatalities. Only one of the incidents in Q3 involved medical response for the casualties. All others were making safe or standing by to assist. We continue to carry out our engagement to minimise road risk, but due to the nature of the roads and the worldwide publicised North Coast 500, we will continue to have incidents of this type. In relation to the UFAS policy or unwanted fire alarm signals, comparable to previous years, Q3 we attended 14 incidents. This is of a slight increase, well below both the local and national average, with engagement to repeat offenders by a legislative team as well as local crews, ensuring we are working in partnership to drive down the effect on the UFAS and any businesses. In relation to station availability, this continues to be one of our most significant challenges, with reduced staffing numbers due to retirements, resignations and changing social factors within our communities. We have several individuals seeking to join across the committee area, and we are at various stages of progression. We continue to be proactive in recruitment, but face significant challenges in recruiting and retaining personnel with progress towards a more locally based approach to supporting and bringing these candidates in. However, we are trialling new methods of joint mobilisation, which is already increasing attendances and ensuring our communities that we work hard to keep safe. Other information that we've got of note, we have placed a new operational medium weight appliance in Lochalsh, which is all the latest equipment, and the crew are all fully trained in its operation. We've also approached and engaged with local landowners with the increasing threat of climate change in relation to wildfire, and how we are building up operational intelligence folder, which will assist in incidents and try to minimise this to local communities and make sure businesses continue as normal. We've also resumed partner exercising and engagement, and will seek opportunities to improve and strengthen our working relationships. Folks, this concludes my submission for today. Thanks for listening to me, and if you have any questions, then I will do my best to answer.
Thank you very much, Alan. Can I correct, your official title is your station commander, is that correct?
That's correct, station commander.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Burt?
You're on silent, sir.
You're on mute.
I unmuted myself. It's got remuted. Good, extraordinary. Thank you again for your report, which is very interesting. At the end of it, you have a table of station establishment and availability, and you say these stations serve West of Ross, Strathpeffer and Lochalsh populations. But the table puzzles me considerably, because all the stations you list are all on the west side. Now, I can understand that Strathpeffer may be served from Dingwall, which is outside the ward, I accept that. But how about Contin and Garve and other communities that aren't on the west? Where do they get their services from? They aren't listed.
So if I could just answer that, Contin and Garve will be assisted from the crews from Dingwall also. The way the geographical map is, Dingwall will come out towards that area also, but I'll also bring in my group commander, Mike Collier, to assist with that answer further.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Mike, you've got your hand up, so yeah.
You're on mute, Mike.
Can anybody hear me okay? That's better. Sorry, I'm having some problems with the microphones. Appreciate that, Chair. Thank you very much for letting me come in there. And Councillor, with regards to that, geographically, the challenges are in the Highland that due to the infrastructure and the sheer scale of the Highlands, we have villages which are given dual approaches. So, for example, Dingwall and Ullapool would proceed to Conton and Garve, and Inverness in particular as well, and Bewley. So we have a number of stations which would cover them, but unfortunately in this instance they would be covered by individuals who support our Highland North area and our Highland Central area. As it stands, myself, Alan, and he's not here today, Station Commander Ben Liversedge, will cover the Highland West, which is the Western Ross, Strathpeffer and Lochalsh areas. However, if you ever need any information regarding that, I'm happy to meet with some of my colleagues and collate that for you and bring it to the table or off table for you to have a conversation. More than happy to do so.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Logue.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. I just have a question, my own curiosity really. You mentioned kind of the challenges around staffing and employment, and in the kind of a last table, I'm struck by the gender balance, some stations more so than others. Are you doing any work in terms of trying to attract the widest range of people possible to the profession? Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Councillor. Yes, the SFRS is committed to engage with all persons within the community. So we are continually to engage with going to different areas, whether it's nursery events, school events and that, trying to seek female members of staff. What isn't shown in that table is we've actually got another 2, 3, potentially 3 new female recruits on waiting lists at different stages within their development to come into the service. So we're looking, we're fairly pleased about that. We are doing other things in regarding to fire skills courses for females. We're actually going to be running an all-female fire skills course. So this should then bolster the approach for them thinking or wanting to join the fire service in future. So we are being proactive in this area to try and engage. Thank you.
Mike.
Okay, Chair, many thanks. Just to support Alan there, Councillor, it has been significantly challenged trying to get diversity within our organisation. Historically, we are seen as predominantly a male-dominated environment. What I would note is that we have seen, and I cover from Kinlochleven up to Kinlochbervie, including Skye. And as Alan's noted, we've got an all-female fire skills course going on in Broadford soon in March. We have seen significant increase in the Lochalsh area for females joining our service. We are working hard on the West Coast. The problem being that the recruitment profile is very difficult to obtain that. But I will note this, that we actually have moved quite a few of our females who are in the service into positions of management. And that has been a real godsend to us to support females coming in, because they see those progression chains now and has changed that cultural identity that we previously had. And I think that, we're seeing much more now as a diverse employer. And absolutely, if you have individuals as councillors that are showing interest and can give us that commitment that we need, please direct them towards Alan and Ben, and we'll have those conversations around that, because we do find, particularly on the west coast, the Western Ross and further north up towards Lochinver, we have some real significant challenges around recruitment.
Councillor Bird.
Yes, sorry, my previous discussion was interrupted by a phone call coming in that I had to get rid of. But I heard what you were saying about the centres of population on the east side of the ward, but I'm quite surprised that a place like Garve is served from Dingwall. I mean, if there's a fire in Garve, it's going to take a ruddy long time for a fire engine to get from Dingwall to there. I mean, is this an adequate service, really?
Mike?
Thank you very much, Chair. So, as I tried to explain to Councillor, when our fire stations are established, we have 56 fire stations across the Highlands, and prior to that it was Highlands and Islands. And as you can imagine, there are a number of smaller communities, and we used to have what we would call volunteer units as well. When the shift came in 2013 to the new Scottish Fire and Rescue Services, we moved to on call. We've also found a number of these units, like in Rattigan and Muck, for example, have unfortunately fallen by the wayside to some degree because of lack of recruitment profiles that are available to us. Garth in particular is one of those ones where it sits. Dingwall, Ullapool, Bewley will be mobilising to that, and it's not unique in its position that it sits there, that sort of infrastructure position, which makes it far away, but the sort of incident count for it, we tend to find more road traffic collisions in that area or issues around the weather related climate events that we deal with there. So I would suggest to you that we've got a very tried and tested system that works very well. By the sheer virtue, and I actually live in Kishhorn, so I have Lochalsh along the road there, but I'm acutely aware as an individual living here that, and having responded to several incidents on Skye when I was working on Skye, that by the very virtue of where we live, some of our choices make us more remote rural, and make that a bit more challenging. The road network to Garve in particular is particularly good, so that does support that. And believe me, if there's any event, we will ensure. One thing that we have done as a service is we have never failed to attend an incident. We will always be there to attend an incident. I appreciate the timescales, but there is a limitation to how many resources you can do with the financial services that we currently have.
I certainly understand that, but do you regard that level of service to Garve as being adequate?
At this moment in time, I would suggest that it is, yes. By the nature of, if I was to have a look at our statistics over the previous 5 years, operational incident requirements, what we've achieved out there, the level of risk to individuals, I would say at this moment in time that, and particularly because of the road network there being particularly good as well, we would probably be satisfied with that at this moment in time.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Campbell?
Ooh. Hello? Is it me, Liz?
Yes, it's you. We can hear you.
We used to have a very active one at Kinlochhew. Is it still active?
If I could come in, Alan, if that's okay. Yes, Councillor, this is still active. A good station, a good crew that's there. They used to be in my area, but they've shifted across to the north. So if you ever need me to get any information regarding them, I'm more than happy to have that conversation to find out what they're currently doing, what their statistics are for you as well. I would just note as well that some of the design or the sort of future modelling we're looking at for the service is also looking at where we have our appliances based and what appliances we have in our stations. So I have an operations role within the service in Highlands, and I look at fleet. So places like Ullapool, where we have one large appliance and one smaller appliance, I'm reviewing the capacity of that and the need for that to see if we can increase our appliances there in size to support a better and stronger resilience in the area. We also have a wildfire unit, a full wildfire unit going into Ullapool as well, which will support the West Coast in the future for some of our significant wildfires we get. So hopefully, I know we'll never give you 100% reassurance, but I would like to think that you'd be significantly reassured that we've done this for a very long time, and we do take into account all the challenges we have. And if we find an area, we do what we call post-domestic incident responses. We do home fire safety visits. We do a lot of community engagement. So we're active in these communities where there is maybe less of an operational response model, and we actually are in there ensuring that the community safety is higher at those times as well, and there's more of an awareness about that around that. Hopefully that supports Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members? So I would just like to say thank you very much for all that you do. I'm very aware, living on you were just talking about Garve, the accidents on that road, and yeah, not an easy job, but you're out there and they're dealt with fairly quickly. So really appreciate that. We're invited members to I think scrutinise this report and comment, which I think we have done. So thank you very much, Mike and Alan, and thank you to all your teams for all the work that you do.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks very much,
Thanks.
councillors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye. So next on the agenda, we have Mark McGinty from Trading Standards, who I believe is going to give a presentation. There you are, Mark. I will hand over to you. Thank you.
Morning, Chair, members. Thanks very much for the invite to come along today to talk about financial harm in the home, which is an element of work activity that the Trading Standards service that you provide. Shall I share a presentation, or I'm not sure, Elijah, if you're going to do this remotely?
So if you can share the presentation, that's fine. Yep. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, can I just confirm, Chair, that you can see that okay? Thank you.
I can see it, yeah.
Thank you. So today I'm going to talk about financial harm in the home. This is a work stream of Trading Standards, and I'm just going to outline really what we do in this area, what the issues are, just to highlight to members and open further engagement if needed. So I'm going to look at doorstep crime and scams. Doorstep crime is when bogus workmen appear at your front door. They're physically there. Scams is when someone takes your money, however, they usually are not there. Doorstep crime often begins with flyers offering exterior home maintenance work, which is a small leaflet placed through your letterbox. Bogus workmen often come uninvited, so you haven't called them up to get a quote or whatever, they just appear. Quite often offering low prices and guarantees. Works are then often expanded to include work that you don't need, and of course in doing so the price increases. And what we've always found is that the work is generally of poor quality. Bogus workmen are often linked to organised crime. There's a link to unauthorised encampments in your local area. Fly tipping, which is usually the disposal of any goods that are taken out a garden or whatever. There's increased cost to yourself because you have to fix any damage that's been left and make remedial works. And we do find, particularly in the roofing area of this, that damage is left and the householder is left to foot the bill to repair it. What do we do? Well, we work in partnership, so we share what we know. We raise awareness through, appearing in front of yourselves today, but also through the press and social media. We engage directly with communities in relation to cold call control zones, and we have something which is operated by Police Scotland, which we're part of, and that's the banking protocol, and that's working with the financial institutions. And I'll come on to the reasons why the financial institutions are important partners in this as we move forward. So cold call control zones. There's 5 of these currently set up in the Highland area, usually working with community councils and the local elected members. These are areas where there has been predominantly issues in the past with doorstep crime. And as you can see there by the presentation, we will help the community council put notices on street lights as you enter the area. There's also door stickers available that are double-sided window stickers as well, basically saying that uninvited traders aren't welcome. On the inside, it gives a reminder to the householder to what to do. We also provide resident information packs, which is a bit more detailed guidance on how to deal with uninvited rogue traders and how to report them and what to look for and what information to pass on to the enforcement community. Scams is slightly different. Scams is criminals in your home. From a trading standards point of view, it is all about prevention for ourselves. The reasons for that is it's very difficult to for trading standards and our partners, of course, to put our hands on who the scammers are, because they can be operating from anywhere in the world. So prevention is key for this. We work very closely with the partners listed there: Police Scotland, NHS Highland, third sector agencies, communities that wish to protect themselves, financial institutions and other council services. So what are scams? They're cons and tricks. They're designed to make you believe, usually for you to give something over. That predominantly is money, but it could also be information about you. And I often stress this is that, you know, when you get a cold call or whatever and they ask for a bit of information, they already have some information about you, and your personal information is a bit like a jigsaw. And what they may be looking for is other elements of that jigsaw that they don't have, so that they can create a better picture of you, obviously, so that they can use that to copy you for criminal purposes. So scams usually take the form of telephone, mail or email contact. Again, it's commonly usually unsolicited. They target you in your home, and they get there by normal means. And usually at some point you'll have given someone some information about you, and it's got into their hands, and they will be using that to, as I say, get more information or get money from you. And more often than not, you will not see the person behind the scam. So telephone scams, they take two forms. There are nuisance calls, which is legitimate trade calling you when they haven't asked, trying to sell you something that they don't want or need. And then there's just outright scam calls, usually overseas, and they have a simple purpose in mind, and that's to extract money from you. Scam mail, so this is the delivered by the person you trust, the postman, and it comes into your house, and they can offer various things: prizes, lotteries, clairvoyance, loans, asking for help, diet supplements, etc., etc. The list is long, all really looking for you to respond with either information or money. And online scams is basically the electronic version of the paper mail. The other one that happens online is fake websites, and we've seen this quite a lot during the pandemic with fake NHS websites, for example, and they're designed to get information and money from you. What do we do? So here at Trading Standards, we work on, and I'll come on to the TrueCall unit installation statistics in a minute. But basically, this is a device. I call it a real game changer. It's a device that gets installed in a person's home, and when the scammer calls, the phone doesn't ring. So if the phone doesn't ring, you will not engage. And that is the best place for you, and it's the best preventative measure when it comes to the telephone side of this. It also allows us access. If you've got one of these devices in your home, we will get access to who's been calling you, and if there is a nuisance caller out there, that we can intervene and speak to them about how they trade, then we'll do so. And the last one there is caller ID. That is now free for everyone who's got a landline, and that's great, because if you don't recognise the number and you don't answer it, then again you won't engage, which is the best thing to do. From the paper mail side of things, we've got Royal Mail interception. So again, it's if the mail doesn't arrive, so we will engage with our partners at Royal Mail in certain instances to look to put something in place so that the postman doesn't put that letter through the person's letterbox. We also have scam mail victim referrals, which is a national UK-wide trading standards initiative, whereby we'll receive here at Highland Council Trading Standards the names and addresses of people who have been identified through our criminal investigations as being the victims of mail scams, and we will engage with them locally to prevent basically any further instances of them being victimised. Electronic mail, for that one, we would look to internet takedowns. If there is a fake website out there and it comes to our attention, then we have a mechanism in place to bring that internet down. This slide here is just having a look at where we are in relation to the TrueCall device. We get these statistics regularly, and you can see there that we've been doing this as a service since 2017. We've installed 207 call blockers in the homes of vulnerable adults. For us, this, as I said, this is a real game changer. It stops the phone from ringing. There's 99% of nuisance and scam calls have been blocked by this technology. Also, when you look at the business side of it, the cost benefit, like you see there, the current ratio is 28 to 1. So that what that means is that the cost of one unit saves 28 times that cost in real terms. And that's a mixture of costs for the potential victim and giving their money away, but also we know things like when the phone rings at 5 p.m. and someone's doing cooking or whatever, and they trip and they fall and the ambulance gets called, and all those associated costs. We work quite well with the universities to get these figures as accurate as we can, and you can see the knock-on saving from that is quite substantial. What are the difficulties in tackling the problems? The top one is victims do not wish to come forward. This is very, very common, and we'll come on to the reasons for that in a minute. If a victim does come forward, it's usually not an immediate thing. It's usually too late because of the nature of these crimes. The perpetrators move on quickly. So if it's too late, the opportunity for us may have gone. The perpetrators may be completely unknown. And their whereabouts may be completely unknown, and it's quite difficult for an enforcer to tackle someone who they don't know and they don't know where they are. And it's a very small window of opportunity that we operate in, and it relies on a communication quickly with the right information to us, so that we can step in and hopefully tackle the problem as quickly as we can. The difficulty for victims. Victims experience fear. Will this person come back to my door? Have they threatened me? They have embarrassment, financial loss. Do I have to tell my family members that I've lost, in some cases, thousands of pounds in life savings? They quite often suffer from distress and confusion. And also because their details are known, there's this increased risk of repeat victimization, and these are things that victims regularly experience. And once we've talked to our officers, we can talk them through each of these and what can be done to help make their life safer and make them feel better, and not so much of a target, so to speak. So what we advise is to use caller ID. As I said before, this is now free, and only answer calls when you know who's calling. Request a TrueCall installation if you think you have been bothered with nuisance or scam calls. Don't open unsolicited mail that comes through your door. Bin it. Certainly do not respond to it and do not send any money to it. And you can report it. We work with our partners at Advice Direct Scotland, where any member of the public can report a consumer issue by calling the number on the screen there. And what happens there is that information will get passed, certainly for Highland consumers, directly into Highland Council Trading Standards, where we can evaluate it and we can take whatever action we deem to be appropriate. If you feel threatened or if an emergency situation, you can call Police Scotland on 101. You can also call Police Scotland on 999 if you feel this is immediate. And the Trading Standards telephone number is there as well for anyone who wishes to make contact with us. But I'd recommend members of the public, in the first instance, call Advice Direct Scotland. They're our preferred partners to receive the call, give initial advice, and then we will be able to pick up on that from there. And just a reminder, if you get the call and someone tells you you've won the Canadian lottery and you're now a multi-millionaire, if it's too good to be true, it's a scam. And that, Chair, is my presentation. I'll stop sharing my screen now, and I'm happy to take any questions from members.
Okay, thank you. I think Councillor Burt has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. On one of these sort of meetings, I've never ever before brought up something that personally affected me, but I'd like to tell you about something that happened to me this very last week. I'm interested in your comments, and it may be of useful information to other members. Last week I was phoned by, I assume this is a scam, but you wait for your comments. I was phoned by a woman who said she was phoning from a company, a law firm, who were looking at cases where old PPI claims had never been fully investigated and sorted out, and were collecting funds from incompleted claims. Well, actually, she didn't say that much to me, but she said, could a senior member of the firm phone me? And he phoned me on Friday afternoon. And he said they had found just over £7,000 that was rightfully mine. There was a cheque made out in my name that a woman called Jennifer something, I forget her name, would call on me to give me the cheque personally. He said she would have a badge with a number on it. He gave me the number for identification, that I would need to show a utility bill, my passport or other photo identification, and a PaySafe card loaded with £100, and she would give me £100 in cash in exchange for that. Now, I've done nothing about it, but if I did, I can't see where I would lose, and I can't see what if it's a scam, what the game is. Can you throw any light on that? What are your views on this whole extraordinary story?
Okay, Councillor, I can, and I'm also minded that the recording of this committee will go out to others. So I won't get too personal with what you have said or ask you for any further information, but you may want to speak to me off table on this one. But the scenario you've provided, I am 100% certain is a scam, and I would advise anyone with similar circumstances, do not engage, do not provide any personal information, do not go back to speaking to someone else with the organisation, do not arrange a home delivery. All of that provides information that they may be looking for to create a bigger picture of you. If you have got a PPI and you do think you may be entitled to some form of compensation with it, go through another route. Go to the firm that you've been dealing with. Look at the system that they've got in place. Take independent advice if necessary. Speak to a financial institution, or indeed family and friends, someone who's been through that route, rather than someone who has contacted you through unsolicited means. You do not know who they are, and they are trying to engage with you to get further information out of you. I hope that answers you. Okay.
Yes, that's very interesting reply, which I rather expected. It's interesting that the firm of lawyers, the legal firm that he talked about, you can find them on the net, and they look eminently respectable, of a legal firm carrying out various practices which they talk about, and the people there are named. So it's quite remarkable,
Yeah, it's not for me to comment on the ethics of legal firms and how they conduct their business, but
No.
I would still take my advice and attempt to seek this through another route.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for your views.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Logue with a question.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. You mentioned earlier on that you work with financial institutions, and I was just curious, obviously relatively recently in the past 2 or 3 years, I don't know, the banks have introduced whatever protocol it's called, where they match the name with the bank account. So whereas before you could send money to someone and you kind of thought it was their account, but now you can't, or it's more difficult. Have you noticed that since then there's been an improvement? Because I mean, from my own personal experience, with the bank that I'm with, they're definitely much more proactive. When you're sending money, they say like, are you sure this is the person? Are you sure this isn't a scam? So they seem to be taking it a lot more seriously. Have you seen any improvement kind of on the ground? Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, probably over a 10-year period, at one point it was difficult to engage with financial institutions over the personal data that we needed to share to have the proper discussion. Whereas now, through an organisation called UK Finance, which kind of overarches the financial institutions across the UK, we've been able to get clear messages and understanding. And I mentioned the banking protocol there. So what happens there is banks and financial institutions have all received training. And if you enter one of their establishments to withdraw a large sum of cash, they will be checking your wing mirror, so to speak, to see who's behind you. Is there any other element of maybe a bogus workman around? And if they're not happy, they will invoke what's called the banking protocol, which means that you will probably be delayed at the bank, or maybe escorted to a room for a coffee or something like that. And in the background, a 999 call has been made for a blue light police response to the bank, and then following that, training standards will get involved, and we will look at the circumstances of the whole scenario, and the bank will be not willing, shall we say, to give you your money, because they will have a belief that it's being used for criminal purposes, and they will try and put that block in there. The banking protocol, and I don't have an exact figure for you, but since its inception in Scotland, it's millions of pounds that procedure has saved, and we welcome our ongoing dialogue and work with Police Scotland, who oversee the banking protocol in Scotland, but also the financial institutions involved, because it is definitely saving people money from being scammed.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Campbell.
You said that Highland Council put in 217 call blockers to elderly people. How do elderly people or people that you know that are elderly and vulnerable get those call blockers?
Okay, Councillor. So there's several factors to this. The first thing is Highland Council don't purchase these call blockers. We will await, usually it's through some form of central government funding, that money for these devices will become available, and we'll put in a bid to have X number of devices in Highland. The trading standards function is to install them and engage with the householder, because it may well be it's not just telephone scams that's the problem. There may be other issues that we can see by meeting the resident. So that's how they come in. When they're in, the trading standards will have access to these devices, which will tell us the communications, the telecoms that have went back and forward from the household. So, for example, we may meet with social work, who has identified to us a vulnerable adult, and the social worker has said, this person's phone never stopped ringing when I was engaging with them in their home, and we think they're subject to a scam. So we would identify the person that way. And we'd then be able to have a look at their telecoms and say, well, have you got a family? One example was, have you got a family member in Manchester? No, I haven't. Have you got a friend in Manchester? No, I haven't. Someone from Manchester tried to call you 26 times yesterday, but this device blocked it. And then we then start doing our investigations to find out that it's actually it's a scammer that's behind it. So we'll have our partners will identify to us potential recipients for the device. We will also, through our social media and the Highland Council website, put out information to say that we've got devices available and to make contact with us, and we'll have a discussion with the person just to make sure the device is suitable and that they fully understand what it will mean once it's installed in their house, and we'll then go ahead and put the device into their house. So it is a little bit subject to, do we have devices available? And we have some now, and we do meet with agency professionals. We do engage with social media and the internet, and quite often the other one that happens is we'll get invitations to go along to community groups to do a similar presentation that I've done today, and always from that, people will come to us and say, I think I can do with one of these devices, and again we'll start the conversation there. So that's kind of how the people get to know about it, and we get to know about the person. And if suitable, we'll get one of these devices put in. We have had over time, no devices available in Highland, and we have a waiting list, and we'll keep that there. And when devices do become available again, we'll go back to the people on the waiting list just to double check that they still need it, and if they still do, we can get that put in place.
Thank you.
Thanks. So any other questions or comments from members? No, don't think so. So I would just like to thank you, Mark. It's such an important bit of work you're doing. And the information you've presented today, particularly because it is being recorded, we can forward that on to groups. We've got so many community councils, we can get the message out there, and we'll make sure that we promote the phone numbers that you've given us. And in response to what you said to Councillor Logue's question, sometimes I've found it a bit frustrating that every time I do something with the bank, I've got to check it and double check it and get a PIN number. But actually, it is really positive to hear that is making a difference. So that's very good to know. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair, members. Pleasure to speak to you this morning. Bye.
Thank you. So next, I think we've got Ian Moncrief, the Roads Operation Manager. Are you there, Ian?
Good morning, councillors.
That's great. I shall hand over to yourself.
Thank you. So today we have the capital programme for 24-25. And the purpose of this report is to seek members' approval of the programme. Starting off with finance, unlike the last few years, only the baseline capital budget is going to be available to us. That means there's going to be a significant reduction in what we can achieve. As you probably are aware, the budget hasn't yet been allocated to Ross and Cromarty, so I've had to take the previous year's capital baseline to develop my programme. I've also had to allow for my colleagues' costs in the project design unit. I'm sure some of you will have come across Hamish Bennett, who's been assisting us. And what's left is then split up on the road network basis across the different committee areas in Ross and Cromarty. So as west of Ross, Strathpeffer, Lochalsh is 48% of the road network, there's 48% of the budget allocated. That comes to £960,000. Just before we go through the programme, I generally take all the information such as third-party insurance claims, where we know there's known problems. We have various other sources, road inspections from the public forwarded either directly to us or through yourselves or the community councils. And I try to look at both strategic routes and local routes. if we take the strategic routes first, they carry more traffic. So depending on what operations we're going to undertake, you get more vehicle kilometres per pound spent. So it's more value for money. But I also recognise that some of our local roads serving one or two houses, isolated communities, those roads are beginning to break up. So I have to try and split that programme up to try to serve different needs. Typically, we have 3 types of treatments. Surface dressing is where we take an emulsion, which consists of bitumen and water. We spray that on the road surface, and we then spread chips, stone chips, and roll that in. We probably have to do patching before that to get the road ready for it. And essentially, surface dressing seals the surface of the road, stops the water getting in through the cracks, and helps to maintain whatever life that road has. The other 2, overlay and inlay, they're both very similar. Overlay is where we would put out new tar on top of the existing surface. And inlay is more or less reserved for urban areas where we have to work to specific levels, such as ironwork or the height of curbs. In both cases, we would be putting down typically between 40 to 50 mil of tar and then rolling it. Both overlay and inlay strengthens the road's capacity to take the weight of the traffic and will extend its life, as opposed to surface dressing, which basically maintains the life of the existing road. In terms of costs, surface dressing ranges between maybe £4 to £12 per square metre, depending on how much patching is required, whereas overlay can be around the £25 per square metre mark, and inlay around the £35 per square metre mark. So clearly, I can treat far more on my road network by surface dressing it, and far less if I concentrate on overlay and inlay. But typically, I would try to use surface dressing for the strategic routes and the overlay or the inlay for those rural roads serving isolated communities, which have already broken up beyond the point at which I can realistically surface dress them. So, moving on to the programme. On the top of the list is Salahi Bridge. Fairly shortly, we hope to be constructing a bypass and putting in a new bridge at Salahi. And the 100 metres in the programme of overlay works is to cover the cost of the new road. That's not just going to be 40 to 50 mil. That's going to have a top court 40, a base course of 60, and so that's going to cost a little bit more. On the A890 at Mammoth Hill, that surface dressing, we're probably going to have to redo that. The stone chips are limestone and they can become a bit slidey. We're changing our quarry supplier back to Sconser this year, so we hope to have better stone chips there. Geobeg Hill is another area where I'm conscious that we need to surface dress that. Again, not only does it improve the life of or maintain the life of the road, it also improves the skidding resistance. So as you can see, when we're on steep sections of road, surface dressing is probably the way to go for that. On the A834 from the rail bridge to Strathpeffer, we want to include some patching and there's a decision going to be made in the next few weeks as to whether that's going to be done this financial year or whether we're going to have to wait till next financial year. If that happens this financial year, then I'll be coming back to the councillors through the ward business meetings to decide what schemes below the red line we can move up. The A832 at Slatterdale, that's badly in need of some patching, and in future years we will then see it surface rest. The 896 from Strathpeffer Junction to the primary school at Lochalsh, we would like to surface dress that. That, if you councillors, if you remember, we overlaid that a few years ago, and would now like to use the surface dressing to seal that tar. And the A832 at Slatterdale, sorry, my apologies, I should have put these two together. I split that up. We've got patching on the Slatterdale, and then later on we're going to surface dress that. The reason for splitting them up is that I can get a better handle on the costs. On the Bialik, we may be able to do some patching this financial year, but as you're aware, it might be a bonny day down at sea level and Arctic conditions at the top. So that is going to maybe constrain us in terms of manpower, and because we'll be winter treating for winter roads, and at the same time we've also got to consider what the weather's like for patching. I won't go through all the rest of those particular schemes, but I'd be happy to come back to ward business meeting and to, first of all, to update you on the progress, but also to consider what schemes to accelerate should I find some extra money. And I'd now be happy to take any questions.
Councillor Bird.
First of all, a very basic question. Capital and revenue. Where does capital spending end and revenue spending begin on roads? What's the definition?
Yeah, that often comes up, and I can understand why, because effectively it's the same material that we would be putting down. It looks the same. The difference is that capital is, if you like, betterment. We're improving the road. We're not looking at a pothole or a string of potholes. We'd be looking at the whole section of road. Whereas revenue would be more looking at filling in a pothole or maybe a couple of potholes. To give you an example, the section at Blairinch, it's about 100 metres long. That could probably go either way, but I would probably class that as capital, because the works aren't just filling in the potholes, cutting out a metre square here and a metre square there, and then patching it. We're looking at a longer length. And I hope that maybe clarifies the position. It's the length, which is probably the best indicator.
So I take it, if we look at the road from Strathpeffer to Contin, where there are quite a lot of potholes, that would be revenue. Then.
Yes, eventually when the potholes get too bad, too joined up, and it becomes unviable to patch
They're
them.
pretty bad
and
now.
Then surface dress. Well, I appreciate that, but I'm looking at the whole of the road network and trying to make that decision. You know, that's when I've really got to look at: is it feasible to continue to patch it, or do we need to plane it out or overlay it?
But I was going to add, but presumably the road from Strathpeffer to Dingwall, the bit that hasn't been done up to the ward boundary, that would be capital, presumably, because that's extensive.
That would be my intention, because it's clearly not the odd pothole here, and then a couple of 100 metres along, there's another pothole.
That's
It would be
it's bad
really
area,
to be dug out and relayed.
Yes. Okay. I mean, I take it. I mean, the budget hasn't formally been set for the year yet, so presumably when we have a definite budget, we can revisit all this.
To a degree, Councillor Burt. What I need is a decision made on the schemes that are going above the red line, because I've got stone chips to order. I might have traffic management or road closures to organise. Road closures take 12 weeks. The capital works needs probably, we tend to put an advance notice in to the street works register immediately after the committee meeting, because some of those works need noticing, which is extending to 10 weeks, 12 weeks. And in addition to that, I've got to order my stone chips. So the order to Sconser Quarry has to go in basically now, so that we can guarantee we get the stone chips come maybe June, July, when we start surface dressing. Where there's scope to maybe, you know, if one of those schemes needs an extra 20 metres, that's not really an issue. But we can't really introduce a new scheme in a month's time, because we need to organise those works. As we go through the year, there may be extra money, and we can then come back and look at extra works. But again, those works will be subject to the same amount of time, just to set them up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Campbell.
Last year on the Stone Ferry pipe bass, Monroe's had the contract and they did a great job in the bit they did, but there was a small section left on this side of on the Lochalsh side of the tunnel. And I inquired from Andy Bone at the time, and he said the council were going to do it. When are they going to do it? And why was it left? And then another question is the SSE, they were going to do laybys going up to Glenelg. Have you heard anything from them about doing that? Because the road, Glenelg Village was actually fine, it was done, but the bit going up the Bialach is getting quite bad.
Yeah. If I can just recap on the A890 improvements, we got just over 1.3 million last year to spend on the A890, and we looked at sections including the Craig, Strathpeffer, Actashellach, Glencairn Lodge and Coolags. To date, we've spent or committed to 1.2 million. Craig, Strom, Actashellach and Glencairn have been completed to what we initially decided. Coolags.
No, because Andy Bone, I inquired when Monroe was finished, and Andy Bone said they were going back to do this wee bit themselves. It's not a big bit, but it's very bad.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do, but to be fair, Andrew Bone wasn't running these projects, so I would have to speak to Andrew. But we do have about £100,000 left over in the budget, and we do have the option of going back to either Craig or Strathpeffer. The problem is that to close Strathpeffer again means a 12-week delay.
You wouldn't need to close the road. It's not a huge section, but it's extremely bad. I can't understand why it was left out. It was where they were working.
We have the option to go back to Strathpeffer, and that decision will be taken soon.
Thank you. And Glenelg, have you heard from SSE?
No, I'm going to have to come back to you on Glenelg. My apologies for that.
That's okay.
Okay, any more questions? So we've been asked to agree the programme. And from what you've said, Ian, my understanding is that we agree the 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 above the red line. The others are, if there's, we can discuss them if things change with the budget, I presume. But at the moment, it would really be the 6 above the red line, which is Salachie Bridge, Mammoth Hill, Diebeg Hill, the Strathpeffer from the bridge in Slattadale, the A90 junction out to Lochalsh, and actually Slattadale for patching and for surface dressing. That's what we're being asked. That's what we're being asked to approve today, so you can get on with the ordering and management of that programme. And we can revisit further down the list and look at other things following the budget. I've got Chris coming in again, Councillor Burt.
I just wanted to record my concern that the Bealach Road is just beneath the red line. I mean, it needs pretty urgent attention, and I can't say more than that.
Are you happy to leave it there, or are you proposing that we move it up? Then we'd have to take something else down, I think.
Well, yes, I suppose we would have to. Oh gosh, the table's gone suddenly from in front of me. I suppose we would have to take something out. I'm loath to do that. Obviously, it's something we would need to discuss in detail, in more depth, if we were going to.
I perhaps should say, councillors, that when I develop my programme, I make sure that everything on that programme above the red line can be afforded. Now, that's achieved by maybe putting my rates slightly higher. So there may well be some extra cash that we can discuss at a ward business meeting in terms of which schemes we want to focus on afterwards.
Yes, I suppose we have to leave it at that. It's.
I agree that we agree the recommendation to us, but take in mind that 100,000 is that wee section and Stone will be possibly looked at.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to propose the recommendation that we accept it, and we've got the option, as you said, Ian, when further fiscal clarity appears, that we can discuss it at a ward business meeting, and we will continue to raise with your roads team, who are pretty fantastic, all the kind of revenue ongoing work, which sadly, because of the weather we've had, the roads just seem to be, I don't know, it just has such an effect on them. So we agreed, members?
Yep.
I'm afraid we have to, yes. Not much else to be said.
Okay, thank you very much, Ian.
Thank you,
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so we have Derek Martin. Are you here, Derek, to talk about the Duncraig? Give us an update on the Duncraig Trust.
Yes, good afternoon, members. Hopefully you can all hear me. So item 7 on the agenda, you'll recall, members, that at the last committee there was a request for me to go away and review the Duncraig Trust and to bring proposals to this committee. Having done so, I have a number of recommendations in section 2 of the report for members to consider. Essentially, that is to consider a third category of awards, and a bit around the criteria and the scope of the awards, and also for a committee to consider whether or not the current situation of an officer-led decision continues, or whether the committee would like to review that for the purposes of grant allocations. In section 4, I give a little background to the Duncraig Trust scheme. It's had a few different moves through committees over time, and eventually was delegated as an officer decision-making activity. We know that the awards over the last few years have been quite low, somewhere in the region of £200 to £300 for any application, and that's largely historically due to the low interest rates. However, with interest rates rising, that may well have an impact on our ability positively to make further awards, or indeed increased amounts for the awards. Now, it's interesting that in 4.8 members, the review of the 1999 trust indicated clearly that awards may be made to individuals, which is what is currently done, but also to education or training providers and organisations, and indeed to the Highland Council itself. Under the previous arrangements, awards were made only to individuals, and we know that we were looking at how there could be greater scope to allow grant payments to be made to wider organisations, and so there is provision within the trust scheme itself to do that. And so if you have a look at 4.10, there's a proposal therefore that we have the 3 categories indicated there: sports for 14 to 25-year-old individuals, and that is for those who have been selected to represent nationally and internationally. Further and higher education for 16 to 25-year-olds, which is largely the same as it is now, but adding in local training clubs and organisations, where the main benefit is 14 to 25-year-olds, and that's the proposed additional bit. 4.11 and 4.12 just outlines the current arrangements for selection for grant aid. However, it's proposed that there's a change in which is shown in 4.13. And this was designed to try and broaden the scope as far as we could within the bounds of the trust scheme itself. And so the first bullet point in 4.13, we've changed the language slightly to from talent to exceptional merit, attainment and promise to achieve their potential. And also there's a single line in there: funding may have regard to the financial and other circumstances of the applicant. So trying to reflect somewhat where perhaps there are other financial factors that affect an applicant's ability to pursue a particular course of study, for example, unemployment or family circumstances. in order to try and modernise the criteria for further studies, as opposed to sport, but further studies, I've endeavoured to do that by proposing those kind of circled bullet points there, which look at the council priorities, which might give slightly wider scope in terms of applying criteria against grant applications. So a fair and caring Highland, resilient and sustainable communities, accessible and sustainable Highland homes, a sustainable Highland environment and global centre for renewable energy, and a resilient and sustainable council. We've also added in there grant applications which encourage the use of Gaelic language and Highland culture are also welcomed. So again, trying to expand that, and we did receive a letter from an organisation which deals with music and arts and so on, which very much showed the good work that they were doing. And I thought that that would try, through the council's priorities, plus Gaelic language and Highland culture, would give the greatest scope for giving out some grants. In 4.14, this is the new bit that is proposed for local training clubs and organisations. And so the couple of bullet points there is, again, it's for sports, education or training, but national governing bodies and universities and so on, they could not apply directly to this fund and simply soak up funding. It's the idea is that it's Highland based. And in order to ensure there's not double funding, should, for example, a promising musician wish to apply to the fund, but their training organisation also wishes to apply for the fund, essentially for the same person, that would not be acceptable. 4.15 indicates that, perhaps given the current interest rate levels, that awards might be between £250 and £1,000. That's for individual and clubs and organisations, but could exceed it for clubs. If they had, for example, quite a number of people within the age bracket that they were training up to represent nationally, for example, it might be that there would be scope to go beyond £1,000, depending on the impact, if you like. I attach as an appendix the 1999 Educational Trust Scheme, if you're interested in the detail around it. Members, I'm happy to take any questions around this.
Do we have any questions?
Agree the recommendation.
Well, I was going to say, Councillor Campbell, you probably know more about this than the rest of us.
Yeah, I've been involved from the word
yeah.
go when the trust was formed.
Yeah.
No, it sounds fine. It sounds fine.
Yeah. So I'll just run through the recommendations. We're asked to consider and improve the introduction of a new third category of awards. That would be to clubs and organisations. The criteria for individual applications for sports, further and higher education, local training clubs, the scope of the level, and the one thing that can we agree as well that we're happy for this to continue to happen under delegated powers to the officers. It doesn't need to come, I don't think, given the level of awards, that it has to come to
happy
committee.
to agree.
We're happy to agree that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Derek.
I can continue, members, of course, to give an annual report.
Thank you.
We would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek.
Thanks,
Bye.
members. Bye now. Bye-bye.
So we've covered number 8 on the agenda. So number 9, we've got the Community Regeneration Fund applications. We've got Mark Crowe and Fiona Cameron. Are you both there? I'm just going to get my paper up. I will hand over to you both while I get my paper up.
I'll just ping Fiona a message to let her know I'm on.
I don't usually print, but I actually did print some of the information for today, so I've got it all to hand.
So did I, because it would take a while to come up. Okay, so maybe I'll set about just to check. Are you okay? Because it might take a wee bit of time. You don't need a break.
No,
Well,
we're fine.
Yeah, y'all
Okay.
okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll carry on. Thank you.
Okay. So, good morning, members. Actually, it's good afternoon now. So, thank you for your time. Ahead of today's meeting, you'll have received the committee report together with the application forms and a summary spreadsheet which highlights the outcomes of the technical assessments that I've undertaken on these applications. Please note that this assessment is undertaken solely on the information that the applicant provides us during the application process. Where a project's been awarded a red or an amber rating against any of the criteria, this does not reflect an eligibility issue, but it does flag up that there may be some outstanding concerns or that only brief information was provided within the application. And if members wish to approve projects that have red or amber ratings, then we would usually seek to address these concerns by applying conditions to any formal grant offer. In summary, today, consider 12 applications to the Community Regeneration Fund with a total grant request of £497,000 and £497,630. Available area funds are £366,861.40. This means that the available funds are oversubscribed by £130,000, 769 and 60p. Members are asked whether to decide whether to approve, defer or reject applications under consideration before them within the funding that is available. Members might feel that a deferral is appropriate if they were generally supportive of the project but felt that further information was required that could not be put in as a condition, whilst a rejection would require the applicant to come back with a new expression of interest and or an application to a future round. In the case of an approval, I would ask members to agree the value of the grant award and any conditions that they may wish to attach to any technical conditions that the team would put in. Unless there are any further queries, which I'll come to because Chris has got his hand up, I propose to briefly summarise each application and given the allocation is oversubscribed, initially seek your direction on each project as whether you are minded to approve or otherwise in turn. I'll keep a track of the cumulative total of funding that you have approved in principle through the process to advise you of how much has been allocated. And when we have a final position on the funding, members can confirm their approval of all of the applications. So, Councillor Burt, I see you have your hand up. If you would.
You're on mute, Chris.
Well, I've unmuted. Well, probably what you said. You want to go through each one. What I was going to say is we've discussed all these at length, and we've agreed various compromises. And I was going to suggest that we could simply accept your recommendations on your chart in full, because I think we all accept that this is the fairest way forward in relation to the projects that have been made, and I don't see there's very much more to talk about.
Yeah, I think we have to go through them, Chris. This is a public area committee, so we have to go through each of them. Biz?
I wouldn't agree with Chris. I think we have to go through them like you said, Liz.
Yeah, no, we have to go through them at this meeting. Yeah, yeah, for the sake of public transparency and scrutiny.
Yeah. If I can, before I introduce each project, if I can just confirm as well, there was one project that applied to this funding round that has been funded through separate funding programme, community-led local development. So Lochalsh, Shinty and Community Sports Club have been awarded £30,000 towards the purchase of a new minibus, and they're cracking on with that project themselves. Okay.
That's good to hear. Really positive that they got the money. Delighted. Did you have your
Yeah.
hand up again, Councillor Campbell?
I want to say how delighted I was that the local sports Shinty Club was awarded this funding, and the benefit will be to the whole community for Shinty and any other services that want to use it. It's a tremendous boost. So thank you, Mark.
No problem, that's noted, thank you. So I'll just briefly mention the project and give a few sentences of summary, and then I'll hand it over through the chair for discussion. And on each application, if members are minded to approve, if they can state they're minded to approve, but that'll be an advisory until we get to the end and we know the final position. So firstly, I have the Howard Doris Centre, and their project title is Developing a Community Wellbeing Hub. So in summary, the applicant is looking to make the transition from providing NHS-funded daycare provision to a wider ranging community wellbeing hub with reduced external funding. They have developed a business plan and a 3-year financial plan alongside this, which still shows some funding gaps. They are refining this plan as costs and income streams become more known. The funding applied for is to cover 70% of year 1 staff costs. I'll hand over to you now, Chair.
Yes, so I would like to approve this. This is badly needed in the area where we're struggling with health and social care. It's quite a trailblazing project, and has actually been highlighted in the Health and Social Care Committee as potentially the way forward for remote and rural communities. I really hope that NHS Highland come forward and offer match funding if we agree this, but I would like to approve this recommendation. Councillor Campbell?
I would 100% back this. This is the way ahead for care of the elderly. We have had the Howard Doris Centre in the past leading the way for care of the elderly, and they've attracted different fundings, but sadly that came to an end, and NHS is taking over the home part of it, the home part, and this is a daycare for elderly people, and I think it's so much needed, and I back it 100%. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll note that as a...
Are we all agreed?
Yes.
Agree.
Yep.
Yes.
Agree. Great.
Next, we have Torrington District Community Association, and they are seeking funding for a development officer. They're looking for 75% of the costs. It's a well-presented application, which, as a change to the technical assessment, now has all its match funding confirmed. The applicant has chosen in this instance to seek to employ a local, to employ a development officer to develop a local plan, rather than look to get a consultant in.
I would support this strongly. They've developed an excellent plan, which has been very well researched and has been consulted on extensively in both Torrington and Kinloch, and it does merit support. And it needs an officer of this kind to take it forward if it's going to happen, and I support it strongly.
Thank you. I'm also happy to support this.
I'm also happy to support it.
Okay. I think we're all agreed.
Yes.
Excellent. If I look over there, that's because I'm looking at another screen and putting it on a spreadsheet. It's not because I'm not listening. Next, we have Dornian District Community Hall, and their project is seeking funding to make improvements to the toilets. Donny Hall amalgamated the public toilets in with the development and extension of the hall in 2008. The toilets became the property of the hall and were operated by Highland Council as public toilets. There's been a sharp increase in visitor numbers over the last 15 years, and as such increased wear and tear, for which the applicant is seeking funding to reduce the frequent short-term repairs that they face. Over to you, Chair.
Councillor Campbell?
I fully back this project. Those toilets must be the most used toilets in the Highlands. They serve not only the village of Dorney, the traffic going from Skye to Inverness, carers, everybody that wants to use the toilet. And it's the busloads in the summertime that come in there are phenomenal to view the castle, which is opposite. And the Hall Committee have kindly let the community have use of their toilets, and to continue for this to happen, this is a vital application. I fully 100% back it. Thank you.
I'm happy to support it as well.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so
Okay.
Yep, I think we've agreed that one.
Next up, we have Gairloch Community Council with Gairloch Area Development Limited. So this is a partnering approach, but led by Gairloch Area Development. A joint application which is well presented and is seeking to develop a local place plan for the Gairloch area using a consultant.
So I'm happy to support this. I've engaged with the Gairloch community. A lot of thought has gone into this. Place plan is obviously happening everywhere and is essential as we go forward with communities. So I think this will be of great benefit to the community. I'm happy to support.
Happy support.
I support it too.
Okay.
Next, we have Plockton and District Community Trust. So this is, they're seeking to develop a tourism place plan. So a place plan that is arising and how to deal with increased pressure from visitors and tourists. They feel that the increase in visitor numbers is placing pressure on a relatively small village with narrow streets and insufficient infrastructure to deal with that. The applicant has stated within their application that the plan will not cover traffic management, but they will look for the community council to cover that aspect. Okay, Chair.
Councillor Campbell, I think you know more about this one.
I will approve the tourist plan, but with a recommendation that it does include the traffic management plan. As a councillor who goes to Plockton and knows the issues there, the two are tied hand in glove, as recommended by Martin MacLeod, our Chief Officer in Inverness. So as long as they take the traffic management in with the tourist plan, I will accept this. Thank you.
I'm happy to support that. Councillor Campbell, I think that's quite a good recommendation.
So just to clarify on that one, members are minded to support with the condition that the tourism place plan includes traffic management as a consideration.
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm. It's vital. The two go hand in glove, the traffic management and the tourists. You know?
Okay.
I agree.
That's noted. Sorry, I'm just copying over. So keep track. Okay. Next project we have is from Kayak Community Development Company, and the project's entitled Homes for Kayak. This project seeks to undertake further project design and development stages, as well as some early site preparation works. The early site work has been requested is being required due to the cost of developing housing in rural areas as set against the funding that is available per unit. Okay, Chair.
So badly needed in the area again, homes. It's a good application, and I'm happy to support.
Happy to support.
Yes, I agree.
Yes, thank you, members. The next project we have is from Lochbroom and Ullapool Community Trust. This is entitled Lale Mountain Bike Project, which is seeking to develop mountain bike trails in the Lale Forest, and it's pre-construction phase work. This application would take them up to just before construction and would include all the developmental and consent stages, including land acquisition.
So you're handing over to me, sorry.
Yes, sorry,
Yeah,
sorry, Chair, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I would love to support this 100%, but we do have £100,000 shortfall. So having looked at it and the few amber areas that are highlighted, I wondered if we could offer a reduced amount to cover a phased part, possibly the revenue part. So we would support the project officer to take it forward, and then they could come back with an application at a later date.
Okay, so
Surely
if I, sorry,
surely that's what we are offering, isn't it? A reduced amount.
so if I look at the application, they have an element of revenue costs and an element of capital costs. So are you proposing the revenue element of the
Yeah,
costs?
the revenue element to cover the officer, because that would hopefully stand them in good stead to come back with a development officer to a project officer to come back with further funding applications.
Okay, so if I if I allocate the revenue costs that have been applied for at the moment, and then we see how the funding's allocated when we come to the end of the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't that what you got on your chart? Or is it different? You've got 33,180, haven't you?
That's what I've got
the
down there as
chair.
the revenue costs. Yep.
Yes, yes.
I
right.
back the chair.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next, if we move on to Strathpeffer Residents Association. So the Residents Association are looking for funding to construct phase 2 of their inclusive children's play area. This follows on from phase 1, which had a age 4 years and above. This is for a toddler play area for those toddler to 4 years old. The applicant has acknowledged that this is a high level funding request, and as such has made the application scalable. So they've come in with a minimum amount, a maximum amount, and a variation of costs in between. And they've also split the project into 2 phases, phase 2.1, phase 2.2, in case we can't fund, or members are unable to fund them in its entirety.
Well, this of course is just a part of this enormous project to develop this park area. It's an excellent plan that's been well worked out, and the project itself is a well worked out part of it. And I think the suggestion that we help them by seeking to fund phase 2.1 and leaving them to fund phase 2.2 is a very sensible, reasonable compromise.
Any other comments?
No.
So, I mean, I would agree. I support the project. It's a fantastic project, but it's a lot of money. So if it could be broken, if it's possible that it could be broken down into stages, and if you could give us a cost for that at the end, Mark, that would be
Yeah,
helpful. Thanks.
will
I
do.
back the chair's recommendation.
Will do. I'll maybe just take a minute at the end just to check that cost. Yep. The next
So
up we have.
So it's
Loch-
59,335 as you got on your table.
Okay.
Is that right?
Check that at the end.
Mm.
So next up we have Loch Broom and Ullapool Community Trust. This is called Growing for Success. This project is looking to develop storage for receiving used items, refurbishing them, and repurpose and reselling them back into the community. They have presented a 3-year financial plan. However, presently this shows a deficit in the baseline after 3 years, which flags a bit of a concern. Over to you, Chair.
Yeah. So I know this project, and I absolutely support what they're doing. However, there are quite a few amber bits, questions to be answered, as you've said, Mark, in the application. So I'm not sure that we can support it at this stage. I would like to see them coming back, and I don't know, I presume they can get support with making another application from yourself or other development officers, and we could maybe relook at this one. I just feel there's maybe too many questions still.
I feel the same, Liz. I feel,
Yeah.
you know, that when amber, too many ambers.
Yeah, so particularly around, as you said, the sustainable, I'm just looking at robustness and sustainability going forward. We need to ensure that that was secure. So I'd love to see this coming back.
Mark, you are
Mark,
muted.
you're on mute.
Apologies. So some advice back to the applicant about working on their business planning and financial modelling to demonstrate that the project's sustainable.
Yes.
And whatever advice we can give on that grounds. Okay. But would welcome to come back in a future round with a revised application based on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, the next application we have is Dorney Moorings Association. So this is the Moorings and Pontoon Project Phase 1. The applicant is seeking to fund the development stages of design, surveys and consents towards creating a pontoon and mooring facility in Dorney. The project is well thought through and well planned, and all the costs have quotations, costs are known. Over to you, Chair.
So I'm going to go to Councillor Campbell. Is it your area? Do you want to comment?
Yes, please. This is a well thought out project, and the need for the pontoons is great in Dorney. And I know the person leading the scheme, so he's very, 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 very good. And this will help them on their ongoing project, which will help the tourist as well as local economy in Dorney. So I 100% back this. Thank you.
So I'm happy to support that. You've
Thank you.
given us
Yes,
quite
I
a good
agree.
background, Councillor
I agree.
Campbell. Okay. Okay, so we're happy to support that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to be minded that at the moment the running total of grant approved or grant allocated in principle that you're minded to approve is 346,959. So we have £19,902 available left that we haven't allocated as yet. But just to remind members that you've only been minded to approve at the moment. You haven't actually approved. The next project is Strathpeffer Pavilion Community Trust, and this is for the Victorian Gardens. The project seeks to undertake refurbishment and improvement works within the Pavilion Gardens. The application presents a rounded figure for the project costs, but does not break this down or provide quotes or estimates. There is little demonstration of how the project has local support or meets local priorities, although it is presented in part of a larger document for Strathpeffer of a range of projects for that area. Over to you, Chair.
So I'll come to Councillor Bertie. I know he covers this area as well. I know the area well. I live here. It's a big application. Lots of grey areas or amber areas for me. A couple of reds. And I think I would like to see this coming back again in another round, but broken down into bite-sized, achievable chunks.
Yes, I think we've agreed that that's probably the best way forward. I certainly support it, and in relation to the comments made, it certainly does have, as far as I can see, a considerable community support. But I accept entirely that more details are really required, possibly indicating a phased development. That would be reasonable, and we should ask for that.
I think if I could just come back again, if I refer back to my introduction, that there possibly is widespread community support, but the applicants normally send in evidence or letters of support or evidence of community consultation. That wasn't present with this, and there was nothing stated in the application. So it would be useful for them to go into the community and gauge views specifically on what they were trying to achieve, and we could go back with advice on that. So you say similarly to the Ullapool project, go back with some advice?
Yes, and
So
the other thing, I don't know if you can direct them, Mark, but given that this also, as well as the gardens, is quite a well-used path from the top of the village down to the bottom, if they could maybe be given advice on safer routes, paths for all, green space. I think there potentially could be a lot of other funding that they could look at. Not sure, you could probably guide them on that, but I think given the constraints in our funding, I would not be minded to support it this round.
Okay. I'll summarise at the end that, and so that leaves us with one final application, and that's for Toy Box Children's Centre in near Gairloch, and they're seeking funding for what they term vital community childcare need. The Toy Box Children's Centre delivers on local need, demand and priorities. They've demonstrated that in their application. Due to a reduction in other grant support, they are seeking what they describe as short-term funding to sustain their service until additional funding streams come online from the Scottish Government for age 1 and 2 year olds. I'll hand over to you, Chair.
Yeah, so I'm happy to support this. Toy Box lost the the Highland Council grant that they were used to receiving last year. And this will just, get them through the next year or year or so. And after that, they would be looking to wider funding or self-generating funding. So I am happy to support this. It's a vital need in the community. If we haven't got childcare, our key workers can't get out to work. So I'm happy to recommend approval.
I agree with that.
I agree
We
too.
all agreed.
Okay. So, if I just take a moment to check the figure in the Strathpeffer Residents Association that I've got that correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, that 59,335. Yeah, that covers phase 2.1.
Mm-hmm.
So if I run through briefly summarising, Howard Doris Centre, members minded to approve 59,335. Torridon District Community Association, members minded to approve £30,000.
Mm-hmm.
Dornian District Community Hall, members minded to approve £38,440. Gairloch Community Council with Gairloch Area Development Limited, minded to approve 22,817. Flockton and District Community Trust, approve £15,000 with the condition that any tourism place plan includes traffic management. Pyack Community Development Company, approval of £57,942. Lochbroom and Ullapool Community Trust Lale Mountain Bike Project, approve a reduced award of £33,180, which is the sum total of the revenue costs that the applicant has sought. Strathpeffer Residents Association, approve a reduced amount of £59,335 to cover the completion of phase 2.1. Lochbroom and Ullapool Community Trust, Growing for Success, reject the application at this stage, but supportive of the project in principle if they can come back with a revised application at a future round that covers some business planning to demonstrate that the service will be sustainable after grant funding. Dorney Moorings Association approves £30,910. Strathpeffer Pavilion Community Trust, again supportive of the aims of the group, but presently insufficient information to support an award, and ask them to come back at a future stage with broken down stages of work. Ask them to look at the path that goes through the gardens, which is well used, and see if they can find funding from other sources for improving that path, and to demonstrate a wider community consultation. And finally, Toy Box Children's Centre, approval of £12,500. So members, that brings the total grant approval, if members are minded to approve, of £359,000, £359,459, which leaves a surplus of £7,402 in the area allocation, which would stay ring fenced to the area.
So if I'm correct as well, that that money would stay ring fenced to the area and would also give us a bit of leeway should any of these projects encounter a change in their costs as well.
I think that's the case, yeah. I don't know if Fiona's on the call, if Fiona can come back and confirm that. think Fiona was having problems with her laptop.
Hello, members. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry,
yeah,
my
Fiona.
Teams is working quite slowly today. Yes, so you would notice, Chair, that there is a recommendation in the committee paper that we're also asking members to agree today, which is to ring fence any balance that is remaining after you've made your approvals, and it would be to deliver any priorities that emerge in the area. If funds are uncommitted, they are vulnerable to clawback from central sources, but I would hope with this committee decision that they would remain available. They certainly remain available within the area, as that's the Economy and Infrastructure Committee decision, that funds remain within the area they're allocated to, including any underspend. And as you quite rightly say, it's not unusual once projects start to find that there may be some cost increases, and that can be dealt with through our change request process if applicants need to come back in, and we would come back to members to make those decisions.
Thank you.
Okay, members, are we happy to agree that?
Yeah, happy.
Yeah.
Yep, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
And
thank you,
thank
Mark,
you,
and
Mark,
thank
for
you.
all your hard work. Thank you in
Yeah,
presenting
all-
this
indeed.
to us.
No bother.
Yeah,
Thanks very much, members.
for your
Thank you.
wizardry on the spreadsheet. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. So back to the agenda. I've got just to note the ward discretionary grants. I can't actually see a copy of them at the moment, but we know what we've agreed at ward meetings. We're happy to agree them and note them.
Happy to agree, Liz.
Yeah. And the previous minutes, which were there, we're happy to agree and note them as well. That
Happy
was
to
the
agree them
minutes of the
too.
last meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Then I think that is the end of the meeting. No other business being brought up, I don't think. Don't see any hands up. So I will bring the meeting to a close. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions.
And thank you, Liz, for chairing. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.